Hello and welcome to another episode of Motors for the Masses, and today we're going to answer a question that some of you have been asking. Yes, okay, you go on about these Chinese bikes, they say, but what are they like after a year? Well, we have some examples for you, and we're going to start with this one. And now this is, believe it or not, a 2012 Keyway Superlight, and yes, you can tell it has not been looked after, and in a minute we'll show you some close-ups and you'll see why. Now, this has had a new exhaust. It came in just for an MOT. The customer's been riding it, been using it and been enjoying it, and it came in for an MOT. It failed on the exhaust, not because the exhaust had a problem, but because the customer had drilled a hole in it to make it louder. So we put a new exhaust on, and here is the bike. And does it work? Well, it's done 6,000 miles, and yes is the answer. It does work. Let's talk about this in a bit more detail. As you can see, bearing in mind the bike is 8 years old, the chrome has come off on the mirrors here, the chrome has gone on the badges, and it's got grass and moss growing in the seat and on the rubbers on here, and yes, there are some rust issues, but the customer did say that the bike lives outside, and although he did take it in for the servicing for the first 2 years, like the warranty states, it has been neglected for at least a year and a half, he said, and nothing's been done with it. But it still runs and it still works. Okay, it does have some rust issues and some grass issues. Other than that, it still runs. Now, I do want to highlight that popping sound when you first started. Now, the bike has got an EGR valve pipe off, and it just needs refitting on the bottom of the tank, and we'll do that before it goes back to the customer. But I'm trying to film between rain, so I want to get this done quickly. And other than that, the bike still works. So yes, a Chinese bike that's 8 years old still runs fine, other than one problem with the headlight, and that was a bulb and the surround needed replacing under warranty, and that was it. Let's move on to something else, shall we? Okay, so next we have this Zontes Mantis. Now this bike is a 2017 on a 67 plate, and this one has done 6,000 miles. So this bike, as you can see, has been well looked after, and it still looks in pretty good condition. Again, no issues whatsoever. This bike runs, it starts, it rides, not a problem. And it's a Chinese bike that is 2.5 years old. Okay, it's only done 6,000 miles, but as you can see, it's been well looked after. And in a second, I'll show you around so you can see what I mean. But this is another example of a Chinese bike that works. So that brings me on to this one. Now this is a 2018 Sinis Harrier 125 scooter. Now this one has done 8,000 miles. It's just been in for a service and the customer has agreed for me to talk about it. Now, talking to the customer, he has basically said all he'd had was one little bit of wire, had split, and we replaced that, obviously under warranty. Took about 15 minutes, that problem was solved. Other than that, he hasn't really had any other issues with it at all. It's been serviced, it's been looked after. Now, the only thing I will say is the red on the seat has faded a little bit in a year and a half. Other than that, the bike still runs and rides fine. Okay. Now, the customer did say that he is looking to change the bike for another one. That's only because it's coming up to its 2 years. It's nearly out of its warranty and he just fancies a change. Other than that, he is really happy with it and he hasn't had any problems with it other than that little bit of wire, which was solved under a warranty. So there you go. Here we have a Sinis Harrier 2018. It's a Chinese bike and it still works. And that brings me to the end of this very short episode of Motors for the Masses. We hope we've actually answered a question that you asked, and that is, does a Chinese bike still work after a year or so? Well, we've shown you an 18-month-old bike, we've shown you a 2.5-year-old bike, and an 8-year-old bike, and they're all still working. Mostly it comes down to how the bike is looked after, whether it's serviced at the proper time, whether it's done or had its regular maintenance, and whether it's routinely looked after by the person that owns it. If it isn't, then let's be honest, any machine isn't going to work for very long. So look after your bike and it will work for you. Of course, there are some Chinese bikes that are pretty rubbish, and we will come on to the ones to stay away from in another episode, but we can't cover that today. I've got more research to do. And that's it really. If you have any other experiences of Chinese bikes, please drop them in the comments below and let us know what you've had and what issues you've had. As I say, look after your bike, get it serviced when it should be, and there shouldn't be any issues. Of course, there are going to be some bikes that have issues, but as long as it gets sorted out, then I don't see the problem. As you can see, these bikes have had a couple of issues, but they've been sorted out. But they're not major, they're tiny little niggly things, and there's nothing really that's going to keep you away from buying a Chinese bike. Let's be honest, they're a lot cheaper and they're pretty much up to standard as other bikes now. That bike that's got a load of rust on it is 8 years old. The quality is so much better now. So I don't think you should have any qualms or any holdbacks about buying a Chinese bike. Do your research, get the right make, and you should be fine. So, I don't have anything else to say now because I'm freezing my nuts off and it's going to start raining again in a minute. So all I have to say is, until next time, please ride and drive carefully, but have fun. Oh, and we'll be back with another short episode on Sunday about the progress of all my projects. I'm going home. Bye.